Welcome to a very late panel on the very last day of MIP Africa. Thank you for sticking it out for so long. I'm going to try and make this as interactive as possible and open up to questions. If you are sitting here, it means that you are interested in understanding how to formulate and put together your own format, your own unscripted format specifically. And so on this esteemed panel, I'm going to be asking them a bunch of questions, first of all about our landscape and where we're at and what we're looking for, but then the juicy part is how do we put that together in a way that we can actually pitch it to potential investors. So on my esteemed panel, to my immediate right, I have Terja Beney. Terja is the Senior Manager for Reality and Entertainment for the premium channels, correct, at MultiChoice. And then next to her, we have Mbalenhle Ntuli, who is the Head of Reality and Entertainment for Mass Market, Middle and Mass Market, am I correct? Yes. And then next to her, we have a lovely producer, an exec producer from Intrepid Productions, and that is Ashish Gangapersad. So I am going to kick off, and please, as we chat, start thinking about the questions that you would like to ask our panel, and I'll make sure that you can get an opportunity to do that. So, first question, very simple question, just from a viewer's perspective, and this is really to anyone. Why do you think that unscripted and reality entertainment formats still do so well, competitively well against scripted genres and movies? Why is it still a crowd puller for our local audiences in Africa? I'm going to kickstart with you, Mbali.
Okay. I think with unscripted shows, the interesting thing is that the story doesn't end when the credits roll. The stories are continuing because these are real people's lives that we are so invested in. So you'd see what then happens on social media. The conversation continues. So we're watching people live their lives, and the television medium has almost created a space where they can confirm if that is really happening. And then we just package together what they've already put out there, what we're already seeing. So it's just created so much engagement between the viewer and the subject matters that the reality show is based on, which has been really incredible.
Because, I mean, if you think about, obviously, the format of scripted, there are characters, there's a storyline, there's a little bit of an arm-length distance to that story, but reality feels like I could be that person or meet that person down the road, and I could actually see them, right?
Yeah.
So there's that access. So I just want to quickly jump to Big Brother. Both of you have been involved in Big Brother. And if you think about Big Brother, you know, there are games and challenges and those kinds of things as part of the format, but what people stay for are the sort of more dramatic instances. And I think if you could maybe just touch on that, and you as well, Terja, in terms of why something which is a simple format like Big Brother has still worked, in terms of why people enjoy reality entertainment.
So with something like Big Brother, so we obviously cast an ensemble, so it's different archetypes. And that's one of the tricks when you are casting, because I think that's the first tick that we make. That's the first check that we make, where we say, have we casted correctly? So when we cast, we don't just cast because you are the coolest person or you are the most popular person on social media. We actually do psychometric tests that says this person is this kind of personality. Therefore, we know that once they are put in this kind of space, they are most likely going to react in this way. Right. So nothing is scripted. It all boils down to how we've casted, and we always have the villain, we have the soft girl, we've got the ones that have bigger personalities, and you know that once you put those people in a room, you are going to get content naturally.
Yeah, Terja, I think the same can be said for something like Survivor, right? Because when you're casting, when you're thinking about potential storylines, you're intentionally looking at characters that can give you that story, that can generate story.
Yeah, absolutely. Those characters are placed in a world, like a script, but that world has been created by you. And that world then is the foil for all those different characters, the different archetypes to deliver and go on that journey within the format that you've created. Yeah, and I also think that back to the Big Brother question, you know, like the voyeurism, the look in, but it isn't just a 24 or a 48-minute voyeurism. It's a 24/7 voyeurism that you get to see and 100% buy in. No one's telling you a half-truth on an edit. It's real, and you can see that. And I think that's very important, that I can see this person when there's no, it doesn't feel like the camera rolled in and the camera stopped rolling. It's all the time.
Yeah.
And those characters are playing true to who they are. And that's that casting in that's coming through as well there.
So I mean, taking a step back from character and format, right? Ashish, it all really begins with story. It begins with a concept. In your experience, what has been the most winning way of putting together an unscripted format?
First of all, I'm very happy to be here. And just if I may, on a segue, just round of applause who supported the Springboks last weekend, and then I believe they're playing here. Round of applause if you did. Good. That's the level of enthusiasm for the rest of the talk. It's quite interesting because I think, you know, what people are attracted to is their innate curiosity.
Yeah.
Like reality TV is, I mean, it's in the name. It's closest to reality. But to add on to like what they were saying as well, in terms of you have to have these characters that represent a wider community that people can relate to. So having an understanding of what interests you as a creator in terms of reality really gives you a good direction to go with. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm writing down keywords that everyone is saying because this is going to be kind of pertinent to what we're going to be talking about just in a little bit in terms of how to actually put together a winning format, archetypes, real lives, characters. Just think about that, keep that stored because we're going to get back to that. But just one or two more broader questions. So I'm not sure if anyone noticed, but post-COVID, consumer habits and ways of watching TV changed, right? People were baking banana bread. If you remember the heyday of COVID, which now is almost 5 years ago, if you can believe it. And just the consumption of reality content soared because people more wanted to watch things like MasterChef and, you know, Bachelor and easy viewing things that took their minds off of what was going on. I want to just hear from our sort of broadcasting side of the panel, has that remained? Have the sort of post-COVID consumer habits remained? Or have they changed? Have they become slightly more demanding? What have you seen in terms of just local trends?
So during COVID, I think what we've noticed with our viewers is that there was a heightened sense of awareness. There's certain content that worked before that wouldn't work now, post-COVID. And we've seen that with the success of some of our family shows, because people found themselves in a space where you're confined with your family or your spouse, and this is the person you're realizing we actually have deep problems that we've never had to deal with because, you know, everybody was just living their own lives, and you had your 9 to 5, and you come back home, you only spend a few hours. So now, what we noticed is that, so there's two things. So that's the one part of the content that we noticed, that the family show started resonating so much more. And shout out to some of our producers that I see here that did the Bala family for us. And you know, that's a family show that so many people resonated with, to say, I see myself in this character as a firstborn child who's had the responsibilities of taking care of everybody. Some of our relationship shows also started really heightening because people could say, actually, my husband has these habits that I never realized how much I hate them. So when you're seeing something like that, reflecting, you know, it became easier to resonate. And then in the same breath, we found our housewives, and all of these exciting shows did really well because they allowed people to escape. And it was just pure entertainment because after, you know, all of the bad things that were happening, people also just wanted to relax. Like when you switch on your TV, you're tired of hearing all of the bad things that are happening in the world. So those two genres are something that really evolved post-COVID for us.
At Terja, has there been a specific genre within Unscripted that's risen? Because you can go from docu-reality, you can go from that to entertainment, to quiz and game shows, to talent competition shows. What has been the favorite, or is there a favorite right now?
I'm not sure there's been a favorite. I think what Mbali was talking about feels around authenticity really important that you're telling a story that someone is relating to, that feels that it's real, even if it is a housewives or a mommy club. Those characters are real and they're authentic in who they are. And I think that's really been important. What I've also noticed is there's a bit of a nostalgia at the moment. So there's a number of reboots of old shows that were favorites at one stage that we are seeing. Hybrids are starting to come out. Die Brug, The Bridge, I work for an Afrikaans channel. The Bridge is an interesting competition reality, but when you watch it, it's actually a docu-reality. And the mechanisms of change and the mechanisms of trigger points within it is softer. And so that docu-reality space feels more authentic, it feels less contrived. And I think those are some of the spaces we are seeing starting to happen.
So then, 2 more questions before we actually get to how to write a winning format. The first is, in Africa, our consumer habits have also become quite mobile. So lots of people still view on television screens and do co-viewing with their parents and their partners and their children. But what has increasingly happened is that a lot of viewers are viewing on their mobiles and they stream to their mobiles. And the trend is showing that that will continue to grow. Should we bear that screen in mind? Does that have an impact on how you then create content for the consumer? Yes, no?
I would say absolutely.
Yeah.
I think technology is advancing at such a rapid state with the likes of AI, and the attention span of consumers are also evolving. So we should be considerate of all of those factors as well as the technology that's available to make use of it and reach the masses, or as many people as we can. So it's definitely something that should be taken into consideration.
Yeah, Terja?
I can add to that. I'm not sure which one of our soaps moved. We moved it on the schedule for MultiChoice, and we moved it over go-home time, travel time. And we were like, oh, this is the death of the soap. We're going to kill it. And it actually spiked. And what we found is that people were in that taxi in the go-home time. They were watching that soap on their phones. And the response was, well, maybe we should put some wireless into the taxi. So we went and did a kind of a wireless space into taxis and actually boosted that particular drama, that soap. So I think it's not only about how we're creating, but how we're marketing those products and how we are cognizant of those consumptions.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love that, because I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but many of the taxi industries in South Africa now, if you're taking a taxi, you can connect to the Wi-Fi in the taxi and you can watch content. So it is a different way of consuming, and it means that that drive home between 4 and 6, you can pepper that time with really strong content, because you have people locked in for half an hour to an hour who's going to watch your show.
It's a bit like drive time radio.
Yeah.
Now it used to be the biggest slot, drive time. Now you get to actually watch TV at the time.
And then the last question I want to ask before we actually get to how do we do a format is, should you, if you're creating a docu-reality show, a talent competition show, whatever it is, should you create it with brands in mind? As in, I know that in, I can't remember if it was MIP TV or one of the international markets that happened earlier this year spoke about branded entertainment with brands, and how reality entertainment content is that window to opening it up for possible investment. When you're creating a show, should you bear that in mind? Is it something to think about, or is it the afterthought once you get there?
I think we are in really tough times globally in terms of finances. So it's so important to be able to recognize opportunities and how do you make it work organically. I know that in the unscripted sector, we are implementing those things. We're not really saying we want to just create a whole 26-minute ad, because that's what most brands do. So if there's proper collaboration to say, okay, what is the output that you want? What outcome do you want out of this without interfering with content? Because in unscripted, everything is happening very naturally. So you can't be in a scene and now I have to take the soap and make sure that it's facing the camera, because things aren't happening that way. But I know that in the scripted side, they've come up with ways where it's organic, where when people are having a conversation on a table, you can place a soap or some kind of brand there, because that feels organic. If they're having a conversation in the kitchen, you can have the dishwashing liquid. If it's a car that's driving, you can show those. So those, I think there's better opportunities there. Whereas on Unscripted, what we do is that the show can be sponsored. It can come with a sponsor, and then we can create a concept around that, instead of trying to fit the brand in to make everything work, and then it just becomes very inorganic.
Yeah, I mean, if I think about a show like, what was it, X Factor, for example, and this is just from memory, where you would have your panel of judges in the front, they would have to be drinking water, and then I think initially in those very first few seasons of X Factor, Pepsi was their sponsor, and so you would have those Pepsi cups there. But I don't think it should dictate, the concept, and it should be the like you say, the organic integration.
Incidental. And
Right.
also the opportunities are there. If I can make an example, for if you are filming, maybe you're filming in an apartment building, you can also create a barter deal. So what happens is that obviously you cannot sell airtime that doesn't belong to you. So the conversation does have to start with Mnet to say, I can get my cast to be housed in this amazing resort, and then obviously in exchange for incidental exposure. That's fine, but it's a conversation that needs to take place with Mnet so that we can determine how much exposure we give, because they also, exposure needs to be paid for. And if we're saying the value of that being that we were meant to pay 100,000, for example, to house all of the contestants, then we don't get to pay that, but we have to give you the value that then matches that.
Yeah. So let's get to how do you create a winning format. I'm going to start with you, Ashish. What do you believe is the starting point? Is it something that you have to do research on? Is it a brainstorm? What is the starting point of conceptualizing an unscripted format?
I think it starts with an idea, and it has to organically grow from there. And throughout the process, you'll face many choices and challenges, like how to implement advertising and so on and so forth. But I think something that should always remain in any aspect of filmmaking, be it scripted, unscripted, reality docuseries, is a human element, because at the end of the day, any type of filmmaking is a collaborative sport, and that seems to have it seems to have lessened. And so in anything that you do, just do it from a place of kindness and empathy, and find like-minded individuals who believe in the idea, and to be able to bring it to fruition. And it's a long journey, but it's worth it in the end, I think. So I'd say that's a very important thing to instill into the format of the whole thing, over and above the structure.
So starting with something, what you call a human story, a story about humans, something that reflects, as you said, Terja, real lives back to you. And when you receive a proposal, for example, are there any specific elements that you're looking for where you go, okay, this is the framework of this, or where if this isn't there, then I'm sitting with a sort of a weak proposal? Like, what are the, say, 4 things that you're looking for when you're getting a proposal? Do you want to go, Terja?
So I think the way I look at a proposal, especially in a format, is I kind of go back to the principle of the hero's journey. For those of you that do scripting, this is like drilled into you, right? The hero journey. But I think that we miss this in our unscripted space. Yeah. And there are 8 or 6 or depending on which version you want to use. But it starts with an individual that comes in. Who is this individual? Where are they in their life or in this particular story?
Why am I rooting for them?
Well, we're going to develop that, and that's the beauty of it. But who is this? What is their status quo right now? Then you're going to develop a format, because remember, a format is not scripted. You have to create that whole life, that the location or the story world is something that you are creating when you're doing your format. that doesn't exist. And I can't write it because there's no script here. So you create a story world in which this hero's journey can happen. You have what they call an inciting incident, I think is the word, right? This is your first thing in a format. What is that going to be? Because I'm hands off here. I'm not controlling this narrative. The world that I'm going to make is going to control that narrative.
Sorry, can you just take exactly what you've said now and apply it to something like Real Housewives or Survivor or The Bridge?
Sure. I mean, Survivor. I can do it with my eyes closed. So, opening episode of Survivor, you have 13 individuals that come in. You profile all 13 of those. You tell me who they are. You tell me what their resting heartbeat looks like. I'm a mom. I am doing this for these reasons. This is what drives me in my life. This is the status quo of this person. You do all of them, so we all know who they are, and you kind of pick your likes and dislikes and what you hope to see from them. The first thing they then will experience is a reward game. Your inciting incident is right there. This is what drives them. They perform in this particular game. They win, they lose as teams. They perform badly as individuals. How does this make me feel now as a contestant within the game? That's your inciting incident. They then have to carry this kind of feeling, which you unpack in your storytelling and in the interactions, until you get to the immunity game, which is your second inciting incident, right? Once again, you're driving content, you're driving story, you're driving my own personal character in the process. You get to your climax, which is tribal council. I can do this for any format. You get to tribal council. Tribal council is the pinnacle of that story, right? This is what now has transpired based on my process. In a script, this is almost the end of your process, of your story. In a reality show, it's just the first of very many, because there's 13, 16 more episodes to come. That tribal council has an outcome. It has an outcome to the person. It has an outcome to the environment they're living in, to their alliances, or whatever the case may be. And then you end your story and you come down, and where am I now? Who am I? What does this mean to me? In a lot of reality, that process, which is your end part of a movie, actually starts the beginning part of your next episode. Is now, who am I now? What has the last episode taught me? And this is the process that you, as a format writer, has to make. You have to make that entire wire-built environment that you can just let these people loose in, and they're responding to those triggers, they're responding to the process. So format is really important. There are looser formats. Housewives is one of those, but even Housewives, when you start talking to consultants, will give you all those trigger points. They know what they are. They can tell them to you straight. And I think that's probably the starting point, is what is the journey of my characters? How do I structure this process so that it can just go on automated pilot and just produce and keep producing?
And then there's something in marketing called, when you're working on a marketing campaign for a TV show, for example, they always call it the audience's reason to believe, right? All good?
Yeah.
Reason to tune in. So Mbali, if I can throw to you, just building off what Terja said, when you're developing that, and you've developed your story world, you've got your characters, you've got some format elements, how do you factor in your audience in how you're developing your story? What, in terms of the reason to believe?
So one of the things that we've been having a lot of conversations with our producers with is that they create this amazing format and everybody watches it and they are interested in it, but there is no payoff. Whether it's a seasonal payoff or an episodic payoff, the viewer needs to be sticking around for something so that when I get to the end, what is my satisfaction? And I think that's the thing we've really been missing a lot on some of our formats. Obviously, the ones that we have are doing really well because once that has been implemented. And I think with the producers, if we can really focus on that satisfying conclusion, how do I then wrap it up? Why did I watch this? Why was I invested? And also to let the viewer know from the beginning that stay because this is the payoff. And if I can make an example, maybe with the Married at First Sight, you're watching, so the drama is great, it's amazing. We've matched all these people that don't know each other and asked them to marry each other. Now, after watching the journey, what am I looking forward to in episode 12 or 13? I'm looking forward to, are they going to choose each other? So I think always having that payoff, and it doesn't have to be something as big and as massive as that. If you take it to a little bit smaller formats, like an I Blew It, for example, you're looking at that and you're thinking, okay, so it's fun to watch somebody spend all their money recklessly. Yes, it's exciting. And then at the end, where is your life? Like, you know, yes, they give us that little advice at the end, but it's also, the payoff is, after all of that, where are you now? Where to from here? So just always having some kind of conclusion instead of just giving us, you know, the drama and the story, because the format is a skeleton, and that format needs to be able to exist with any character. I need to be able to, either if it's Terja is in there, or an episode with me, or an episode with Ashish, that format must still be able to stand still and be solid enough to keep your viewer engaged.
Yeah, I mean, what you're speaking to is viewer satisfaction, right? Because if you're leaving things kind of open-ended, I mean, there's a space for that kind of content, but in really strong formats, your viewers leave with a conclusive ending, with an understanding of what's occurred, and they can then form their opinion and their emotions around that. Okay, so we've spoken a little bit about putting together format elements, thinking about the audience. Ashish, just based on your experience, do you think there is a need, especially if you're a young producer of unscripted content, to partner up with more experienced reality production companies? Do you think that brainstorm process is important? Just, you know, you can have an opinion about it, doesn't have to be absolute, but in your experience, you know, just to provide some guidance, what has worked out best for you with Intrepid?
Always collaborative. In any situation, I think there's always something that you can take away and learn from it. So as much as there is good, there's also a lot of bad, and I think the key is to enjoy that process equally. Also, when it comes to, you know, collaborating with seasoned producers and companies, a lot of the work has already been done, and sometimes we're so attached to like either IP or format that we're afraid to speak about it. It's a necessity, because often people can see something that you may have missed, and your idea can go from just, you know, something really small to being something massive. So it's important to take that into consideration, I'd say. So yeah.
Moving to pitching. Back in the day when I was a producer, and I'm not sure if people attended Discop, or if Discop is still happening, I don't know. But anyway, Discop used to have this pitching competition where if you had a reality show, you could write in, you pitch to an entire audience of people, and you could possibly win, I can't remember what it was, like 20,000 Rand towards developing your idea. I'm not sure if that's still happening, but it was the scariest thing I've ever done. Pitching is an art. You have to attend a class for it. I'm telling you, it doesn't come naturally to everyone. To some people, it is quite easy, and to others, you have to practice it in order to become really good at it. But in terms of pitching, once you've got your idea and you're passionate about it, and you know what it costs, which we didn't really cover, budgeting. So please, if one of you can touch on that, that would be great. What is your advice around pitching and getting your product, which is your story, out there? Do you want to go, Terj?
Yeah, so it's not so much in the pitching phase, but it's a step back on your research. I think you need to know who you're pitching to. And in the example that you're using, it's a bit like hit and miss, because there's a whole lot of people that come in and you don't know who you're talking to. But if you are pitching to a channel, know your channel. Understand the needs of that channel. To pitch Love Island to a CakeNet conservative Afrikaans market, you're wasting your time and whoever's listening to you. So be very cognizant of who you are talking to. In fact, I want to say that it's easier to pitch or to create a format with a client in mind. Yeah. Because a paper format, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, right? A product that you've managed to sell, which might not be the heart and soul of what you want to make, but it's what the person that's putting money down on the table wants, is so much more valuable than the dream format that's a paper format in the top drawer of your desk, you know. So I think be cognizant of who you are pitching to, and if you've got an idea that's pre-existing, tweak that, position it, put it in a position where it's already almost ready to go for that particular target and that particular market. That would be my first point of call.
Anything around pitching, Pali?
Yeah, so we always say you need to research your audience. A lot of times producers or anybody that's pitching wants to pitch things that they like. But also, you're not the one that's going to be consuming that content. It's so important to do research on that audience. And I may differ a little bit with Terja, where with us, we really just want to get the core of the content. As long as the content is compelling enough, or the concept rather, is compelling enough, we then decide where it will sit, because I know that things change a lot. You know, I think we've got multiple platforms. We've got a Showmax, Mzansi Wethu, Mzansi Magic, before we had a One Magic as well. So we know, but pitch the concept to us. Once we know that, we can always then have the discussion with a lot more people within the business, whether it's the scheduling people, where does this content best sit? Because we won't always expect that from the producer, because we know the opportunities that exist. But for us, it's always what is the compelling thing about that content, that piece of content. And I think if I can make an example, you will see how before, we used to consume, obviously, a lot of American content because that's what was licensed. If you see now how much South African content is being consumed in America or in European countries exactly as it is. We don't tweak it, we don't change it now and tailor-make it for an American audience. They are engaging with the Real Housewives of Durban or any of our formats that are being sold there because the content itself is compelling enough. And I think, yeah.
Ashish, you've been pitching this entire MIP, but you've also pitched projects quite successfully to the point where you've had them made. What has worked for you in the pitching room? How have you prepped when you're speaking to a client about a potential show?
It's nerve-wracking. It's one of the scariest things you'll ever do, to be honest. But again, it's such an enjoyable process, and I think. In addition to like your concept and your product, it's also who you are. So be true to yourself, be authentic, and enjoy the process, because you'll be speaking from a place of passion, and I think that really resonates, and that passion infused with your idea is what gives birth to it. So that's what we found worked for us, and I say us as in it's myself and my friend and producer partner Keith. And it's always good to have that sort of thing to bounce ideas off of each other. So you're always making sure that it's at its absolute best. And it will continuously evolve. That being said, it's very nerve-wracking, but enjoy the process.
Terja, last thing I want to ask around pitching is, do you need to know what your show costs in the pitching phase? Or like what kind of detail around the budget do you usually look for?
Yeah, I think it's important that you can put a ballpark on a show. They say a format should always be scalable. So you can scale it up and you can scale it down. But I think a broadcaster needs to know in your head, where do you think this is going? So I can understand the scale of your thinking. It's almost impossible to make a decision without understanding costs of a product.
And then final question from me, and then I'm just going to open up to anyone who has a question. In my opinion, you can go to university, you can go to college, and you can study screenwriting, and you can become an actor. But there aren't very many courses offered on just understanding how to put together an unscripted format and how then to produce it. Everything I've learned about producing unscripted has been on set in a show, as opposed to in a classroom, right? So the access to that learning experience isn't readily available, which I think definitely needs to change, just from an education point of view. But if we have a potential producer sitting in the audience right now who has a great idea, who doesn't know where to start, what would your advice be to them? If it were you starting out and you want to become a producer for Unscripted specifically, for reality content, where do you start? And I'm going to ask each of you that. Just any advice, anything that you can share as closing comments, and then we'll open up for questions.
So if you've got a great idea for a reality show and you've never worked on a reality show, I would say go find yourself a job on a reality show and get exposed to the way in which storytelling happens, the way we get our stories. I would never consider even constructing a format reality show until I've worked on a set. And then from there, I'd say if you've worked on a set, is to maybe partner with somebody who is experienced in the execution of a format if it's your first time. Yeah, that would be 2 points I would pick up.
Bali?
And I think the industry has evolved, and the broadcaster itself as MultiChoice, we really have recognized that it has been difficult for people to get their ideas across. And then we came up with the portal. The portal is 100% open to everybody. There isn't a person who will submit something that doesn't get read. Every 2 weeks, or was it weekly, we sit together, we have a team that sifts through the ideas and we pick out the idea. And it's not based on how well you've done in the past. Really, when we get the idea, we say, okay, we like this idea. Then we call you in, we ask, have you worked on a production? Because it's still a business at the end of the day. We cannot give you 5 million or 10 million and you've never handled 500 rand. So we ask you, okay, we really like your idea. Have you worked on a production? Have you partnered with people? How much research have you done? Then you get that guidance to say, look at what we have on television. Maybe look at, because we also don't want to recommend and say, work with this company, because things always happen when people work together. So we say, look at people that have done similar shows to what you have done, and then maybe call them and say, can I assist on this? Can I work on this? What advice can you give me? It's worked well for some people and it hasn't worked for some people, but what it does, it offers that opportunity of growth. So that portal is 100% open to anybody when you submit an idea, because an idea is an idea. Ideas are not only going to come from seasoned producers, ideas are going to come from anybody. However, running the business of it has to be handled in a responsible manner. So that's the first part. We have a portal that's open. We then invite you. When we invite you to pitch, we'll obviously give feedback and say, this is what we like, this is what we didn't like. And most people give up on the first try because, oh, they were so mean and harsh. I've got producers here that know they have, yes, and Sabi, they have pitched 1,000 times, and you would think this person has done so many productions with us, you would think that would be an automatic yes, but no. We collaborate with them, we discuss our concerns, and then you go back and you come back. By the time we have that picture on screen, so much work has been done and everybody is so happy. We know that we're giving the audience the best of what we can do. So it can feel like a tedious process, but it is for the best, and we are always there. We are a biggish team. I won't say we're a big team, but we are a team that is, first of all, incredibly equipped to handle all of the concepts that come in, and we give the right advice to that, which is why we put out such amazing content on screen.
Any advice from you, Ashish?
To add on to that, I think kudos to you guys as well for creating that accessibility, because it really is a simple process, one which we've used ourselves to be able to access these portals and submit. And I think it really comes down to that, to keeping your ear to the ground. There's a lot of institutions like the NFVF, and depending on which province you are, that offer development and support funding if you need to develop it and work with a team to get it to a certain stage where you are going to pitch it. So I would say that there are a lot of avenues that are opening up, a lot of new players that are coming to the game, distributors and so on and so forth, creating original content. So keep an eye on the industry as a whole, and shoot your shot. Just go for everything, whatever you can, attend everything, absorb as much as you can, and when the opportunity is there, take it.
And then, I think that there are also opportunities internationally that you just have to do your research about. So, for example, Banner has a development fund for documentaries and unscripted content, but and I literally found that out by going onto their website. I didn't just know that. So I think that they are, and like I said, one of my first exposures to unscripted pitching was at Discop. So it's also about staying in these kinds of events, networking with people, understanding where are the opportunities where I can actually expose myself to people who knows a little bit more than me and who can guide me to the next thing. So we're doing very good for time. I'm going to open up just for the next 10 minutes. Are there any specific questions that you would like to ask our panel that we can hopefully help you with? The floor is open. Any questions? Yes. Hold on. You're getting a mic?
Hi. What types of unscripted formats are you guys looking for right now?
Maybe you can go first, Terja, then you, Mbali.
Oh. You know, we do the gambit. We do game shows, we do tabloid reality, we do big shows, Big Brother. We don't have a specific space that we're looking for. Though I want to say that the big realities are they push our budgets. So we're looking at something that we can scale, something that we can 100% localize if it's an already established format. Localization that is resonating with an audience. It's almost like going back to the beginning in terms of what it is that we're looking for, what a great reality show is. What we can localize, what we feel will resonate with our audience. We don't have a checkbox of what we're looking for at the moment. I don't think there's anything that we don't want.
Yeah. What formats are you interested in making? What stories speak to you? I think it starts from there, because if you're going to be answering to, okay, is this what you're looking for now? Is this what you're looking for now? Then there's no connection with what you are giving us, because then you're not doing enough research on it, because you're just submitting what you think we want then. So it's very important for you as a producer yourself to say, these are the formats I'm really interested in. These are the stories. This is what I've noticed. These are the trends that are happening. And then you bring that to us. Because with reality, we really do just cast the net so wide, because there's so many different universes. It's life, it's things that resonate with people. So what story do you want to tell? Are you wanting to tell a beautiful wedding story? Are you wanting to tell a really controversial family story? It's up to you. You find that, and then you bring it to us, because it is open, and then it's about that connection between you, the broadcaster, and then the audience.
I mean, if I think about something like, what is the title? It is on Netflix, the Dallas Cowboys, the cheerleader one, right? Which is kind of like a hybrid. It is it's about these dancers. It's slightly docu-reality. And it's touching on reality entertainment space, but also a little bit on the documentary space. It's not something that you would think could necessarily work for an audience, but it does. Because it gives you that look back in the curtain. It makes you understand what these girls go through. And it's so dramatic, and it kind of climaxes to these massive performances, and you understand what's at stake for them. So I think that there's space to also try things that are interesting, hybrid things that are interesting as well.
Hello? Okay, cool. Hi, panel. So I want to ask two things, right? With reality, there's some people that are on reality shows that you can tell that they didn't want to be short, right? Like, those reality shows where maybe it's confrontational, So how do you maneuver that in terms of knowing that when this was short, this was an ambush? But we have things like the Bobby Act. We have things like consent forms. So how is that conversation after this person was ambushed and now we need to air it? So where does that come in? And also, I work in post-production, so reality shows sometimes are not shot properly. They're not even slated properly. when the footage comes in, you know, it was just on the fly. You know, there's so many problems in terms of on set, you know, and that kind of also creates delays with a lot of reality shows. And I think we sort of need a system where, you know, production companies can also, you know, be engaged about how to better organize things, and also not hoarding footage, because with a reality show like that and things are not slated, you hoard it, you shoot for 2 weeks, and then you just go and you put it in a drive, and when you're supposed to edit, there's moments that are missed because you didn't even slate those moments, and now you can't even put them on the actual show because you don't even know if it exists or not. So yeah, what is the plan in terms of creating that kind of system more for production companies to do better? Because you might realize you have a hit and you didn't even know it's in your hard drive. So yeah.
So there's two things you touched on. I'm going to do the first one, which was like cheaters. You know, you've caught the cheater. Now you need him to sign the consent form, and what that process is. I'm going to ask you to answer that, Mbali. And then the second one is really around planning and production and executing in the reality space, which I'll then leave to you, Terja. Mbali, you go.
Well, in our shows, we barely do ambushing, but at the end of the day, everybody that's on screen must have a release form. You cannot put somebody on screen without a release form. Whether you trick them into signing that, but it has to be signed. I don't know what happens. So in our shows, yeah, we haven't had those issues where we are ambushing you and we knowing that you don't want to be filmed. Obviously, you're being caught in a compromising position. However, if we are going to put you on screen, you have to have a producer or a coordinator that is really on the ground and that will say you need to sign this form in order to be able to be shown on screen. And also what you normally do is that we give you a right of reply. So if somebody accuses you of something, that's fine. But what we're saying is that by you not responding is that this person, we've given you a platform to have a right of reply to say, is this right or wrong? So by having that conversation also, it covers the broadcaster and the producer.
And then Terja, just around planning and planning how you execute with these productions. If I think about something like The Bridge, for example, where there's reality happening that you can't always predict, things happening, how do you, from just a technical perspective, plan for those things?
Yeah, I even in our big shows, we've never had this conversation that you are talking about. We'd have to speak to a post coordinator to 100% understand how the bigger reality shows are managing that, and how their processes. And I haven't done post, so I can't talk to the point specifically. But I do know that those big reality shows have systems. They have huge big post teams that are managing that. They're managing the cleaning of those cards, the turnover of those cards, how they're logging that immediately. Look, slating is not always, it's a bit of a luxury, especially in the reality, the game reality. But in games and in interviews, that stuff should be slated. There's no excuse for it not to be slated. So I think my suggestion would be to ask the bigger reality shows guys, find out who their post coordinators are, figure out what those systems are. I can tell you the industry's happy to share. They don't want you to suffer any more than what you're clearly suffering. And I also want to just go back on the, if I may. So we do carte blanche as well. And if you think about it, a while ago, carte blanche, especially with Devi when she was with us, was doing a lot of those ambushing spaces. We've consulted with our lawyers extensively over that space. And we've actually had to change the way we shoot carte blanche because it's illegal. If you can't get that letter, you cannot put that on air unless you get a right of reply. And someone who hasn't paid his papgeld is not going to give you a right of reply. So I think be really careful in how you are developing your reality shows in those spaces. Know that what you're trying to do is legal, and how you intend to get that has a legal framework on how you can actually execute it.
One of the things that we actually didn't cover in our questions was duty of care, which is a massive thing in your reality shows, especially where you are dealing with people's personal lives and you are dealing with their personal stories. And we have all seen where it's gone wrong, right? We have seen where internationally, especially, people have committed suicide because of the exposure post a situation that's happened. And so duty of care has become standard with most formats. Can you tell us just, we have 2 minutes, if you can just give us a little bit of insight on what duty of care entails from a broadcaster's point of view, what your expectations are there?
So, on our side, so it's very important. And like I said, even just the shift of the kind of content that we are commissioning, there was a period where everybody was doing the ambush shows and it may have seemed exciting, but also you don't want to deal with the legal matters of that because you're going to end up losing episodes. It happens all the time. And also you're compromising somebody else. You're compromising their privacy. You're exposing their children. What is currently happening is that the cast starts suing each other, but it always comes back to the broadcaster. And if it comes to the broadcaster, it's going to come to you because then you're compromising yourself. The next time we want to commission you, we know that these are the tactics that you use. So duty of care is extremely, extremely important as well for us.
Yeah, I mean, we when I was still working at MultiChoice, we had talent managers, we had check-ins before and afterwards with the contestants. We had psychologists who were on call basically for the contestants so that they always had someone to speak to. And then 6 months post the airing of the show, they still had access to a psychologist. So it depends on what you're doing. If your show is really exposing people's personal lives, it should form part and parcel of your format Bible and how you basically treat your contestants, right? Terja?
Correct. Correct. In terms of shows where people are under emotional stress based on the format itself, we do screenings right up front. They meet with psychologists, and something as simple as an MKR, which is really not
My Kitchen Rules.
Sorry, My Kitchen Rules, where you're going to cook, but you're actually going to be exposed to criticism at that table. People are going to pull your food apart. And something as simple as that, we've had psychologists red flag couples who've entered that we've wanted to cast. And we make a decision and we have a conversation with that psychologist is, what is this red flag? What does it mean? Does it mean we don't cast them? Does it mean that there's extra support for them in that process? Is the additional expense worth it for this particular couple? If it is, you go, fine, and you put all that support in process for them before you even know they're going to, they're going to need it, but how they're going to respond, you don't know. Or you cut them from your cast list. Yeah.
I think for something like Survivor, it's especially expensive because if you're casting someone that you know would not be able to function within that confined space, they're cold, they're hungry, and they're literally going to throw someone with a rock against the head to get off there, then now you have to take care of everyone, and you have to put them on a plane, and the cost is just retrospectively exorbitant. So it actually pays off to do this kind of groundwork before you do your casting. Okay. Any other questions? One more? Yeah?
Hi, my name is Star. I just wanted to find out something. One, it's a licensing question for Umbali reality and licensing reality. Two, if there's things that are happening in the community and you feel like this is reality worthy, what are the restrictions in contracting, like e.g., I'm going to put a random example. What if there's a guy that keeps taking people to heaven and they have 10 minutes and then he brings them back and everybody thinks that's awesome. So now you want to bring such a thing to TV. And then if it doesn't work out, maybe after a season or two, those people continue doing that. Is there like a contractual thing that, no, we own the IP now, they can't continue doing that? Or they were doing it before it comes to TV? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Oh, okay, let me see if I understand your question. Are you asking, so you've identified a situation that is happening in the community, you film that, or you create a format around it and you bring it to the broadcaster, or you pitch it. And then are you asking if we like the show, we have a full season, what then happens after?
Maybe after the season, maybe the show doesn't work anymore on TV or it's off. Then they continue with whatever they've been doing.
Yeah.
Yes. Is there like because you guys now commissioned it, are you guys, it's our IP?
No.
Yes.
No, they can continue doing what they were doing. So what we own with the IP is what you have filmed, because we have given you money and commissioned you to film a project. You film that, you've sent it to us. You can't stop somebody from living the lives they've always been living. So that continues. You can't, the IP and what we do, the deal we have is what you have filmed and brought to us. What they are living and doing, they continue. That's reality.
And on that note of human exploitation, we're going to end it there. But if you have any other questions, please come and ask us. And good luck with writing your formats.